You don't know what hunger feels like until it starts eating your bones. It's not just a rumble in your stomach anymore. It's a hollow, scraping sensation, like someone is carving you out from the inside with a rusty spoon. I had been running for 3 days. My feet were bleeding inside sneakers that I'd stolen from a gym locker 2 towns back. They were a size too small, crushing my toes with every step, but the pain was the only thing keeping me awake. If I stopped, the memories would catch up. If I stopped, they would catch up. The seaside town smelled like rot, like dead fish and stagnant water and cheap, salty desperation. It was the kind of place where people came to disappear or to die. My vision blurred. I stumbled into a place with a neon sign buzzing overhead. Food. My body moved before my brain could stop it. The cafe was empty. I saw a half-eaten plate of fried rice on a table near the back. I grabbed it. I shoved a handful of cold, oily rice into my mouth. Oi, the rat thinks it's a buffet, growled the deep voice behind me. I froze. I turned around slowly. He was huge. He was wearing a grease-stained black tank top that clung to a chest broad enough to break rocks on. But it was the eyes that terrified me. Dark, predatory, amused. You know, pretty boy, in this town, we pay for what we eat, said Dooshik, walking towards me with the heavy confidence of a predator. I don't have money. I'm sorry. I'll leave, I stammered, trying to step back. Leave? After eating my food? I don't think so, Dooshik replied, his hand shooting out to grab my arm. His grip was iron. He pulled me closer. He looked me up and down, his gaze feeling like a physical touch. You're a pretty thing, aren't you? Look at you, skin like porcelain. You don't belong in a dump like this, murmured Dooshik. Please, let me go, I begged. No, he stated simply. He dragged me toward the back of the kitchen. The back room was small, damp, and smelled of mildew. He threw me onto a stained mattress. Dooshik stood over me, unbuckling his belt. The sound of the leather sliding through the loops was the loudest thing in the world. You owe me, kid, and I collect. Since your pockets are empty, you're gonna pay with something else, he declared, looming over me. He caged me in. He radiated heat. Open your mouth, commanded Dooshik. No, please, I whispered. I said open, he growled, grabbing my jaw. He kissed me. It wasn't a kiss. It was an invasion. He tasted like burnt coffee and cigarettes. He pushed me down flat. His weight settled between my legs, heavy and solid. Stop shaking. You're gonna take it all. You're gonna work off every grain of rice you stole, he whispered against my ear. He didn't bother with gentle touches. He yanked my shorts down. I felt the cold air hit my skin, followed immediately by the searing heat of his hand. It was too much friction, too fast. But then, the curse woke up. A strange, feverish heat started to coil in my lower belly. A glowing, burning pressure that built and built. So tight. Fuck, you're tight, groaned Dooshik. The pressure reached its peak. My entire body seized up. I screamed as the climax hit me. But it wasn't fluid that came out. It was a spasm of pure energy. And then, the sound. Clack. Something small and hard hit the linoleum floor. Dooshik froze. He looked at the floor. Rolling slightly near the edge of the mattress was a pearl. perfect sphere of moonlight. He picked it up. "What the fuck is this?" asked Dooshik, staring at the gem. He looked at me. The lust was gone. In its place was a terrifying, hungry greed. "You made this?" he asked. I just nodded, sobbing quietly. Dooshik started to laugh, a dry, dark chuckle. He ran the pearl over my lips. "Well, shit. Looks like you're not just a whore. You're a gold mine," said Dooshik, leaning down to whisper directly into my ear. "Do you have any idea how much this is worth? You're not leaving, pretty boy. You're gonna stay right here, and you're gonna make me a lot more of these." The days turned into a blur of gray rain and humid nights. I lost track of time. My world shrank down to the four walls of that damp back room and the man who held the key. I became a machine that ran on friction, shame, and his touch. He was greedy. God, he was so greedy. He looked at me not with affection, but with the frantic hunger of a gambler on a winning streak. Every night he'd come in, smelling of fish guts and stale beer, his eyes dark with intent. "Wake up, rent is due," said Dooshik, kicking the mattress lightly with his boot. I hated him. I hated the way he used me. I hated the way he'd count the pearls in the morning, holding them up to the light, calculating his fortune while I lay there, wrecked and hollowed out. But the sickest part, the part I couldn't admit to anyone, I started waiting for the sound of his footsteps. In a world that had chewed me up and spat me out, his possessiveness felt dangerously like safety. When his heavy weight pinned me down, crushing the air from my lungs, it was the only time I didn't feel like I was falling. "Look at you, making all these pretty sounds. You like being useful, don't you? You like belonging to me," whispered Dooshik against my neck. He was rewiring my brain. He was dismantling my pride, piece by piece, until I didn't know where the coercion ended and the desire began. But reality has a way of kicking down the door, literally. It happened on a Tuesday. I heard the crash from the front of the cafe, glass shattering, shouting, the sickening thud of wood hitting flesh. My past had caught up. I huddled in the corner of the back room, shaking, listening to the violence spill into the kitchen. The door flew open. 3 men in suits, faceless nightmares I had been running from for years. One of them grabbed me by the hair, dragging me off the mattress. "Found the little rat. You think you can hide from the boss?" yelled the debt collector, throwing me against the wall. I screamed. I thought it was over. Then, a shadow eclipsed the light. Dooshik stood in the doorway, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, holding a heavy iron skillet in one hand. He didn't look like a cafe owner. He looked like a demon. "Let him go," growled Dooshik. "Stay out of this trash. This kid is property of the agency," spat the collector. "I said, let go of my property," Dooshik roared, lunging forward. He didn't fight fair. He fought like a rabid animal, protecting its meal. It was brutal. It was bloody. He took hits that should have knocked him out, but he kept getting up, swinging that iron skillet with terrifying force. When it was over, the men were gone, dragging their broken limbs out the door. Dooshik collapsed against the counter, breathing hard, blood dripping from his nose onto his white apron. I crawled towards him. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely touch him. "Why? Why did you do that?" They would have paid you. They would have given you money for me, I sobbed, reaching for the first aid kit. Dooshik looked at me. His eye was swollen shut, his lips split. He spat a mouthful of blood onto the floor and grabbed my chin with his bruised hand, forcing me to look at him. Money comes and goes, Jooha, but nobody, and I mean nobody, takes what's mine. You think I'd let them touch you? You think I'd let them ruin my investment? Said Dooshik, his voice rough and broken. It wasn't love. I knew that. It was greed. It was pride. It was ownership. But as I cleaned the blood off his face that night, pressing the cool cloth to his battered skin, I realized I didn't care about the difference anymore. He hissed in pain, his hand instinctively gripping my waist, pulling me closer until I was straddling his lap. The adrenaline was still pumping through him. I could feel it radiating off his skin, hot and dangerous. You scared me, kid. Don't you ever let anyone else touch you, murmured Dooshik, burying his face in my neck. I won't. I'm yours, Dooshik.
I'm yours, I whispered back. He kissed me then, not with hunger, not with greed, but with a desperate, terrifying claim that sealed my fate. I closed my eyes, listening to the rain pound against the roof. I was trapped. I was used. But I was exactly where I wanted to be. The morning after the fight, the air in the back room felt heavy, different. It wasn't just the metallic tang of blood anymore. It was the suffocating weight of an unspoken agreement. I woke up tangled in the sheets, my body aching in places that had nothing to do with the debt collectors. Dooshik was already up. I could hear him in the kitchen, the violent clatter of pans and the hiss of the espresso machine. I sat up, pulling the blanket over my bruised shoulders. On the floor, right where my tattered, blood-stained sneakers used to be, sat a white shoebox. It looked pristine, alien in the grime of the room. I reached out and opened it. Brand new sneakers, expensive ones, the kind I used to look at in shop windows before my life went to hell. Put them on. You look like a beggar in those rags, said Dooshik from the doorway. I jumped. He was leaning against the frame, holding a cigarette in one hand and a mug of coffee in the other. His face was a mess of purple and blue bruises, the cut on his forehead stitched up with butterfly closures I had applied the night before. He looked rough, dangerous, and impossibly solid. You bought these for me? I asked, my voice raspy from sleep. Don't get used to it. I just can't have you scaring away the customers looking like a stray dog. You're working the front today, Dooshik grunted, taking a drag of his cigarette. Working? But people will see me. What if the agency comes back? I panicked, clutching the shoes. Let them come. You saw what happened to the last ones. Nobody touches you while I'm breathing, Jooha. Now put the damn shoes on and come eat, he commanded, turning his back. I put them on. They fit perfectly. It was a small thing, a pair of shoes, but as I tied the laces, I felt a strange tightening in my chest. It wasn't freedom, it was a uniform. I walked into the kitchen. Dooshik shoved a plate of eggs and toast toward me. He watched me eat, his dark eyes tracking every movement of my fork, every swallow. It made my skin prickle. The cafe opened at noon. I tried to make myself small behind the counter, wiping down glasses, terrified that every shadow walking past the window was a monster from my past. But Dooshik was always there. He sat on a stool near the register, sharpening a knife, his presence filling the room. A group of college students came in, loud, laughing, normal. One of them, a guy with dyed blonde hair, leaned over the counter to order.
He smiled at me, a polite, flirting smile. "You're new here, right? You have really pretty eyes," said the student. I froze. I didn't know how to respond to kindness anymore. I opened my mouth to say thank you, but a heavy hand slammed onto the counter between us. The cutlery jar rattled. "Order or get out," growled Dooshik. He was standing right behind me, his chest pressing into my back. He loomed over the student, his expression murderous. The bruises on his face made him look psychotic. "Whoa, chill, man. Just ordering a cola," said the student, backing away with his hands up. Dooshik didn't move until they took their drinks and sat at the farthest table, whispering and looking terrified. "You didn't have to scare them," I whispered, looking down at my hands. Dooshik grabbed my chin, forcing me to look up at him. His thumb pressed hard into my cheekbone. "You liked it? Him smiling at you?" asked Dooshik, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "No, I stammered. "Good, because you don't look at them. You don't smile at them. You look at me. You smile for me. You belong to the cafe, which means you belong to the owner. Do you understand?" he hissed. "Yes," I breathed.
The possessiveness in his voice shouldn't have turned me on. It should have made me run. But God help me, it felt like a warm blanket. It felt like I mattered. That night, he closed the cafe early. He locked the front door, flipped the sign to closed, and turned off the main lights. The only illumination came from the street lamps outside, casting long, distorted shadows across the floor. "Come here," said Dooshik. I walked to him. He was sitting on one of the tables, legs spread. He pulled me between his thighs. He looked tired. The fight had taken a toll on him, his body stiff and sore. He rested his forehead against my stomach, wrapping his arms around my waist. "I'm tired, Jooha. Make me feel better," he mumbled into my shirt. He didn't demand it this time. He asked for it, and that was more dangerous than any threat. I ran my fingers through his rough, red hair. I unbuttoned his shirt, revealing the map of scars and fresh bruises on his torso. I wanted to soothe him. I wanted to break him apart. I knelt on the floor between his legs. I did what he taught me. I worshipped him. When I looked up, his head was thrown back, his eyes squeezed shut, his face twisted in a mask of pleasure and pain. "Jooha," he groaned, his hand tangling in my hair. The friction, the heat, the smell of him, it overwhelmed me. But this time, the pressure in my gut didn't come from fear. It came from an agonizing, blinding need to be closer to him, to be inside his skin. My body seized. The climax hit me like a freight train, shaking me to my core. And then the sound. Clack, clack. 2 of them this time. 2 pearls rolled across the wooden floor of the cafe. Dooshik opened his eyes. He looked down at the glowing gems, then at me, panting and wrecked on our knees. He reached down, picking one up. It was warm. "2?" asked Dooshik, a slow, dark grin spreading across his face. I don't know why," I gasped. "I do. It means you're learning. It means your body knows who its master is," said Dooshik. He pocketed the pearls, then grabbed me under the arms, lifting me up effortlessly. He kissed me, hard and deep, tasting of triumph. "Let's go to the back. I'm not done with you yet," he whispered against my lips. And as he carried me into the darkness, I realized I wasn't just paying a debt anymore.
I was paying for the privilege of being his.